There is a ceasefire in place right now between Iran and the United States, but most analysts expect this conflict to restart in a week, 2 weeks, or maybe a month. Eventually it will resume because it seems impossible for the US and Iran to reach a truly mutually beneficial and satisfying agreement. So today I want to examine how this war is likely to develop. And my thesis is that this US-Iran war is really the first war of the 21st century. I want to explain how warfare has changed over the past few centuries. The simplest way to fight a war is to destroy a state's military capacity by killing as many enemy soldiers as possible. You would meet the enemy on a battlefield. Whoever won that battle would win the war. That was how wars were fought for hundreds and hundreds of years. Then in the 20th century, something changed. The nation-state developed the ability to mobilize millions of people. The state could constantly replenish its forces on the battlefield. So now you had to destroy the state's capacity to produce and manufacture. The goal shifted from killing as many soldiers as possible to killing as many civilians as possible. That was the nature of 20th century war, especially World War II. But in the 21st century, things are different. We now have nuclear weapons and there are too many people. It is impossible to kill everyone. If you use nuclear weapons, others will use them against you. So today, the goal is to use the population against the state, to turn civilians against their government by sowing as much discord and dissent as possible within society. You do that through economic sabotage and economic strangulation. That is the argument I will present to you today. First, let's consider why we have 8 billion people on this planet. Most of us see this as a huge achievement, but if you think about it, it's not so wonderful because there aren't enough resources or space to go around. In fact, without fertilizers, we could only support 1 to 2 billion people. So how did we reach 8 billion? And most of us are not very happy with the state of the world. Scientists will say, it's thanks to the Industrial Revolution, revolutionary technology, and understanding that allowed progress. That's not true. The real reason is the nation-state. The nation-state is a political revolution that came to us from the French Revolution. The main architect of the French Revolution was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was Swiss, not French, but he developed the theory that underpinned the revolution, social contract theory. Before Rousseau, people didn't really think about the individual's relationship with the state. You were born into a community and simply followed tradition, custom, and family. But Rousseau said no, we are born free because God gave us freedom. So why do we choose to surrender freedom in order to join a community? His answer, we join society to become more free. By ourselves, we are limited. But together we create something called the common will. Think of this as democracy. Democracy is basically the idea that to make a decision, we vote, and the majority wins. For example, 3 of us debate whether to go to McDonald's or Pizza Hut. If 2 vote for Pizza Hut, we go to Pizza Hut. That's democracy. For Rousseau, this is not a good system. We should strive for something higher, total freedom. That is the idea of the general will. The common will is who we are. The general will is who we could become if we come together as a people. The best way to understand the general will is through Kant's theory of the categorical imperative, which for Kant is the highest moral law. What makes us truly human? What allows us to achieve our ideal state? 3 principles. First, universality. Imagine that all your actions are reflected throughout the universe. If you smile, everyone smiles. If you get angry, everyone gets angry. Ask yourself, what kind of society do I want to live in? That is how you should behave. Second, free will. No one can compel you to smile. You must smile out of your own free choice. Even if smiling makes you happy, forcing you to smile goes against humanity's good. Third, humans as ends. I can never sacrifice another human being to achieve a better society because we are the ultimate end. Together, these principles form the categorical imperative, which gives us the theory of the general will. Even if we all vote to eat ice cream, we shouldn't, because that's not how we achieve enlightenment or the ideal state. We should follow Kant's categorical imperative. From the general will comes the sovereign, the highest law, basically God. From the sovereign comes the state and government. The state makes us into citizens, and then we have laws, culture, education. For Rousseau, this is the social contract, the ideal state. The French Revolution began because many intellectuals and revolutionaries wanted to achieve the social contract. But many disagreed, especially monarchs. For them, the monarch is sovereign, not the people. At that time, most European countries were monarchies, so they saw the French Revolution as a direct threat and invaded France many times. Then something strange happened. Professional armies marched into France and lost to citizen armies, people with no military experience. Why? Because the social contract theory is so powerful that it makes people willing to fight and die for it. The monarchies had professional armies, essentially mercenaries. Mercenaries don't want to die, they collect paychecks. Their job is to intimidate, not to die. But the French citizens were willing to fight and die. That's why France became the most powerful nation in Europe at the time. They could call on an almost unlimited number of citizens willing to sacrifice themselves. Meanwhile, other countries like Prussia, Russia, and Austria had professional soldiers who were afraid to die, wanting only their paychecks. Over time, the French overwhelmed Europe and created the French Empire. But once conquered, those nations developed their own theory to defeat the French. They realized they also needed a theory of nationalism and the nation-state. However, they rejected the social contract. Instead, they built a theory based on nation, language, culture, and race. That became Germany, or what was called Iron and Blood. Now, with these theories of nationalism, Europe became invincible because every nation could call on its citizens to fight and die. That's why Europe became the most powerful region in the world, starting in the 19th century. But the problem with nationalism, with populations eager to fight and die, is that they keep fighting wars. To solve this, all these nations focused on growing their populations as fast as possible. That led to massive population growth. With more people, wars became deadlier and deadlier, culminating in World War II. By the end of World War II, Europe had exhausted itself. Too many had died, their civilization was destroyed. That allowed America to rise to power. America had a different theory of the nation-state. The French theory was the social contract. The German theory was iron and blood, race. America, being a multicultural nation of immigrants colonizing North America, created a different model. The nation-state as a game. The Constitution and government act as game masters. Anyone can come to America and get rich, as long as they work hard. That would create the greatest nation in the world. It became a game anyone could play. In fact, the more players, the wealthier America becomes. After World War II, America spread this game throughout the world, to Europe and Japan. But communist countries like China and the Soviet Union did not want to play. They had their own game. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the American game conquered the world. That was globalization. The problem is this: as the game continues, eventually only a few players end up with all the wealth. Massive inequality grows. Everyone else falls into debt. That is the world we live in today. America created a very successful game that generated tremendous wealth and tried to include as many players as possible, hence the population boom. But now only a few people hold all the wealth, and everyone else is in debt. In other words, these people are seen as useless, so we need to reset the game. The way to reset the game is to destroy it in the first place, have another world war, burn everything down and start over. And that is why we are in the situation we are in today.